Well, that was fun. Well, hey there. Welcome back to my channel. As you might notice, we are running around trying to enjoy the last of the golden hour light behind me. And it's spring 2021. Costube has gotten together and we are doing our spring 20 questions, but it's 2021. So you get 21 questions this year. So let's go find a comfy spot here in the park and we're going to sit down to answer some questions. By now you will have seen a whole bunch of stuff coming out about CoSy 2021. If you remember COVID last year, it's been rebranded to try and not necessarily have it associated with COVID forever, among other reasons. And I am participating with a bunch of the other costubers that you've come to know and love. I didn't do 20 questions last year because I was kind of busy, but this year seemed like a fun time to get introduced to everybody before the big event. You can find the dates up here since I didn't bring my notes about that because I was trying to take advantage of the nice lighting. But I hope you'll join us all. I'm going to link after the event to all the stuff down below, between playlists, the Facebook page, the Instagram page, the events, all of that sort of stuff will be down in the description as information becomes available. It also occurs to me by now that I haven't introduced myself, and if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I am always happy to make some new friends. And my name is Maridith. I love historical costume. I specifically have possibly an unhealthy obsession with 16th century Italy. We're going to answer some questions for you guys. What originally got me into cosplay and costuming was probably just my mom teaching me how to sew as a little kid. I've always loved costume in some form or other, but I wouldn't have been able to stick with it and really get going with it if it hadn't been for someone being around to help me out and teach me the ropes. My favorite materials to work with are actually silk brocade like this dress. It is super pricey, but at the same time, it is a dream to work with. Brocade does have the floating strings along the back, so if you're doing that on the machine, sometimes you can catch those on the feed dogs and it gets to be a little bit of a bear. But hand sewing brocade is amazing and I highly recommend. My dream photo shoot opportunity would actually be to fix and resize my Anne Boleyn portrait dress and take it to Hampton Court Palace in the UK. It would just be such a fun thing to take out there and get some pictures where she actually lived wearing the dress I reproduced from her portrait. And if Hampton Court wasn't available, maybe Hever Castle or one of the other places associated with her that isn't the Tower of London where she was killed. So who taught me my crafts? There's been a whole lot of people actually. When it comes to doing a lot of fiber arts between crochet, knitting, a lot of that stuff was taught to me by my mom as I was a kid, some of the basics of sewing. I also did go to university for a bachelor's degree in theater studies where I got more mentorship there. I've also been playing in the Society for Creative Anachronism for the last 13, 14 years. So as I've come up through the ranks, I have a specific teacher. She's a Laurel. and she has taught me quite a bit. I've taught myself quite a bit, and other bits and pieces along the way. The project I am proudest of to this day is probably either this sleeveless vesty situation that I made for our local Baron when he stepped up. It was probably about a month after he stepped up here in the Denver area, and he wears the thing constantly and just loves it. I want to know that stuff I've made is being appreciated by my friends, because if my friends don't appreciate it, I won't sew for them again. For myself, the thing I am probably the most proud of would be this picture here. It's going to be my reproduction that I tried to do for a lady in a green dress from the San Diego Art Museum. She's dated around 1550, and I am just so in love with this portrait. I always have been, and I'm still trying to get that high-colored fun partlet just right. The project that taught me the most would probably have been a dress I sewed for one of our queens out in Onsteora for non-SCA folk that is Texas and Oklahoma. And it would be this dress here. I got some help on it, but those applied work sleeves were just amazing to work with, and also kind of the bane of my existence. I sewed it with silk velvet, and at that shot silk velvet, which I had never done before. Sizing for a different body shape than I had traditionally done was really interesting, and I also got to tweak and work out some of my theories I had progressed farther with Venetian fashion. Do I drape? Do I use commercial patterns, or do I draft? My dress form isn't the most awesome, so I can't say that I drape, but I do sort of a mix between drafting my own patterns and altering commercial patterns. It really just depends on the projects. If it's something I'm not really comfortable with, like a lot of my 18th century things, I have been either plotting out patterns from books and trying to scale up from there, or I've been using pre-purchased patterns. If it's something I've got a little bit more exposure to, or I'm more and more comfortable with, say 16th century, I am a lot more likely to draft my own patterns. Team cut or team trace? You know, I'm gonna live dangerously, and I am totally on team cut. I have always been on team cut, and just the tracing wheel thing drives me kind of bonkers. I will cut it to the largest size around the pattern and then snip into the size I need if it's a multi-size pattern, or I will trace off a copy of the pattern size I need and then cut that out and use it. But trying to graduate stuff out and trace it and all of that drives me super bonkers. I haven't really worked a lot with pattern weights before. It's not that they're bad. I just haven't I don't have experience with them. I have a lot more experience with pins. That's what I became really comfortable with, or draw it straight on the fabric and cut it out. That's really where I tend to live when it comes to how to get the pattern to the fabric. I'm not sure I want to really answer this question. It's almost like asking a lady how old she is. How many UFOs are in my bin? Let me put it this way. I have pulled out a half a dozen that I'm going to have finished before SCA events start resuming in my region. My dream era for making more stuff, if I'm expanding outside of my current area of expertise, I either really want to do a 14th century coat, sort of like one of these, or my other dream stuff is going to be a lot of 18th century, which is why you've seen so many accessories popping in on the channel. So I'm gearing up and trying to knock down some of my nerves when it comes to doing 18th century. And the easiest way I have found to kind of introduce myself to a new century or a new time period is to make some of the accessories, because it's a lot lower cost when it comes to investing in it to make a couple small accessories than a whole dress. I mean, this was 6 or 7 yards of fabric versus the mitts were a half a yard, or in that case, a recycled pashmina. So, link to that cool little video up there. But I really want to do 18th century, and I really want to do a 14th century coat, maybe with some cute tippets falling off my elbows, little veil. It'll be fun. You know, the pandemic changed the way I sew because I started recording and videoing how I sew. And by recording it and then editing these videos for all of you, I've actually been able to improve my technique. That's how I learned how to use the thimble correctly, and just forced myself to get used to using it back about a year ago now. A little over a year ago now. I think I got my thimble in February or March of last year. So forcing myself to learn how to use a thimble, improving my hand sewing technique. And I do have that antique sewing machine that I should introduce you to all to and learn how to use properly. In the last year, I actually started sewing a fitted garment for someone who's masculine presenting, and I hadn't sewn male garb in a while, so working on this doublet was kind of busting out of my comfort zone a little bit, and I started using the Barra system to draft that, which I'd never done before. And getting to be more comfortable using Barra's tapes to try and proportion things out was nerve-wracking. I'm not comfortable with it yet, but it's something that I'm really proud of the progress I've made. Probably going to see a video on this too, because it's actually in the queue of some of those UFOs to get fixed. I really want to revisit my Bruegel-inspired 16th century working class kirtle from the Netherlands. It was red wool. It's the very first piece of clothing I had ever fully hand sewn, and I have learned a lot since I made that dress. So there's some things to fix or improve upon. And I'm also no longer a tiny, just post-college student. With my weight being fairly stable where it's at, I would like to alter it so it actually fits again. The best sewing tool I have ever invested in, hands down, has to be my gingers, my scissors over here. I can't stress what a world-changing event it is to actually cut with a sharp pair of fabric scissors, and know that that's a pair of fabric scissors that I'm going to use for the rest of my life. If they're dull, I take them in and get them sharpened. It is hands down the very first thing. If you're looking to up your kit, invest in those. If you're not sure if this is even your thing, use the simple like $5 ones. It's fine. They still cut, they do their job. But my gingers cut through wool broadcloth like butter, and that is not something that I was able to do with less expensive scissors. I've had a couple. Probably those plastic one-size-fits-all thimbles that you get at the hobby craft store. They've never fit me properly, and that's why I took forever to learn how to use a proper thimble because they're not solder sized, and having one that's either too big or the wrong shape altogether for my finger made me never want to use it. And my sewing just took forever because of that when I was hand sewing. Going forward for this year, I do have a chemise a la reine that is cut out and waiting to be assembled here. I know it's a shock, but as we get into summer and it starts getting really warm out, I thought it'd be fun to have something that's just billowy cotton gauzy awesomeness. I also do have some fun stuff and gear for the fall. I've got some widow's weeds that I'm working on from the 16th century and a whole bunch of 18th and 14th century stuff that is cut out on the table because I actually enjoy cutting things out. I am a scissors girl. It is what you see in the portraiture of the time periods I work in. It is what I was trained to use all the way coming up. I've tried rotary blades, and the only time I really enjoy them is when I'm making bias tape. For everything else, it's going to be scissors. Oh, you guys have seen my sewing assistant, the incorrigible little Miss Zoe, who is not here so that I could make the light. She is a rescue dog that I adopted when I was living out in the Midwest. But she is the sweetest little girl in the world, and I am so happy to get to share her little interjections to our sewing adventures with all of you. And she might have a few projects on my UFO list I need to finish for her too. How I place my pins depends on what I'm sewing and how I'm going to sew it together. If I'm sewing by hand, I will generally put them perpendicular to the edge, but not always. Also, if I'm hand sewing, I'm trying to baste more than pin if I can help it these days. If I'm machine sewing, however, it is always perpendicular because if it takes a lot longer to pause and pull them out when they're going straight into the feed dogs. And you're a lot more likely to break a needle in my experience that way. I've had 2 of my colleagues in costume shops past pin going along the parallel to the edge rather than perpendicular and not take the pins out in time. Broke the machine needle, and then splinters of that went everywhere. We had to go and take them over to urgent care to make sure they were okay. So take your pins out. Don't sew over them, pretty please. If you do, warn everybody and wear some goggles. It depends on the time of day and season, but from this time of year going forward, I will usually have a pitcher of iced tea sitting around at any given time. I don't do sweet tea. I tried it. I might do a couple drops of sweetener into my tea, but traditional Southern sweet tea has never been my thing. Hot tea during the colder months, so tea is a year-round always thing. Coffee, I've tried to cut back a little bit on. In college, I drank way too much espresso, but I still usually have at least 1 cup in the morning to kind of kickstart my day. And hot chocolate in the evenings when it's cold. I watch a lot of stuff that I've seen before usually. So if I have something playing on my TV or my computer, I will usually have background noise of a show that I have watched several times before so that I don't have to pay as much attention to the details of what's being said because I can pop in at any time and know what's going on. I also watch a lot of Costube if I'm trying to get inspired and work up towards something, but I'm not working on something specifically that needs hyper focus for every stitch. And to that end, if it's something that's not hyper focus on every stitch, I may also throw out something new. Okay. Well, now I'm known. You guys have a little bit more information about me. Definitely check out the playlist below, and that's going to have all of these 21 questions interviews that are going on for the Costubers. And go check out CoSy. I hope you really enjoyed the programs we're all putting together, and keep tuned to social media so that you can see when we're uploading, dates, schedules. There's going to be some lives, videos. I'm posting some videos, although I might rework which ones I'm going to post for that now that I've had some more time to think. Thank you for watching. Definitely click that like and subscribe button to get more info about me, and have a beautiful, blessed day. Bye. Definitely go and like the Facebook event. Hi, we've got some traffic. Hold on. I've got to get up because it's getting dark, but my foot's asleep. Okay, Meredith, next time we bring a chair. All right. 3, 2, 1.